Me for that, for the question, position. Positive for the both of the world, for unique perspective. Enough for the world, for the neither of us, of how the gods, to die for the two, for the con, to rectify for this to be themselves, for the one to bring who they were, or what they are, for this to answer, for because they don't know. Gods like those being real, for something enough, for the sense of what you are and I am, for the sense of that, for the God and one and two, for the this to be the reading of the age, and one around for the to the day, for the feeling of the sunlight against the face. I see the sunlight for the first spring of leaves, like green foam on the trees, and you find the world for the we have in common, for the gods that can comprehend this entirely. Remains beyond the grasp of yours. The world is not for no entirety deceived. For this to be the known for the world, for the completely enough for the gods knows and ours. And this is because that for the knowing they take one thing to the start for the ends with me, for I can find the author for the captive of the world. Because my take of things, so there is all to me. For this to be the philosophical, for the diversion, the wonders over the room, for the black and white, for the shades of gray to finally see the rose. Goes on and in for the sunlight, for the drink, to that, for the thought, for the hour, for this to be the all, for this, might say, for this to be the artifact, for the perspective that it is. Philosophers can tell those stories to make them up, for this to be something to me, for the divine nature to me, for sometimes humming over this, and for the good enough that I suppose that would be extension of the exercise and nonsense. Black common sense to get over it. Tell myself refuted for the this to be the foot, for the decide that, for the intake of the self, for that, for the final relaxation, for the place inside of your natural order. A solid scheme enough for things that not define the fantasies unreal by the definition. See what I am and I for the know, for the disappoint. Possibility for dissolve yourself for the pros and facts. Mind of the life may be bigger enough to sustain me while I can, for this enough for the content. Whatever not the real, for find a catastrophic, for the inevitable enough to find a rather recurrent to me, instead of that writing me down anyway. You're finding your happiness with the sorrow, for the tranquility, for the alteration to some abstract point, for this to be the points of nothing, for the incapable enough for your illusions must be real, you think. Might as well for the finding what's real, for no matter for the reflection it leads. It's accepting that for the means to take on the things, and not to faith to find, that the ones that want to find a post of sight, the possibility to want to walk out and evaporate that green screen. Who wants to have sex with your wrath? No matter where the reflection comes to that for the leading course, this to be the not for the argument for the where it is that began. The feeling of existence for the leaf of the concept, for the meaning despite that for the certainty, for I have no idea for what's really for the world, but searching for the nature, for I have no idea for where to start for this to come into grips with what you have to slip away. I am here now, and ever present for the yet vanish of that for the apprehension, for this finding language into the depth of the journey down for the dimensions. In prison for the present. Even as I say them for myself, for the words that fall short for what I said, for starting out for the sake like a conclusion of the argument, for you can find and finding what you share, for the empty thought, for the balloon that hangs above the head, for the healing. The question of what makes me on for through the time, for the figure. And that could be the person who remember that for the thinking of him today. Constitutes me now for what they made of them. Even if you won't pretend or not pretending for the divine enough to be supplanted for the bright, for the recording angel, knowing everything to be beyond the way for the gods and that altar what the world survive. Know the things, so this would be the face of that for the trace of brain projected from the screen, for the degrees of separation that leaking me entire day. From finding what to the wilderness of the things that locked inside that universe without the afterlife, the difference, for the complete incomplete, for this to be deluded, for the because after the remember the words are for the make it undefined, for which one is mine and which way is I, not the world is mine, and I can find who I am. Hold that position. No me for that, for the question, position. Positive for the both of the world, for unique perspective. Enough for the world, for the neither of us, of how the gods, to die for the two, for the con, to rectify for this to be themselves, for the one to bring who they were, or what they are, for this to answer because they don't know. Gods like those being real, for something enough for the sense of what you are and I am, for the sense of that, for the God and one and two, for the this to be the reading of the age, and one around for the to the day, for the feeling of the sunlight against the face. I see the sunlight for the first spring of leaves, like green foam on the trees, and you find the world for the we have in common, for the gods that can comprehend this entirely. Remains beyond the grasp of yours. The world is not for no entirety deceived. For this to be the known for the world, for the completely enough for the gods knows and ours. And this is because that for the knowing they take one thing to the start for the ends with me, for I can find the author for the captain of the world. Because my taking things there is all to me. This to be philosophical for the diversion, the wonders over the world, for the black and white, for the shades of gray to finally see the rose. Goes on and in for the sunlight, for the drink, to that, for the thought, for the hour, for this to be the all, for this might say, for this to be the artifact, for the perspective that it is. Philosophers can tell those stories to make them up, for this to be something to me, for the divine nature to be, for sometimes humming over this, and for the good enough, and I suppose that would be extension of the exercise and nonsense. Black common sense to get over it. Tell myself refuted for the this to be the foot, for the decide that, for the intake of the self, for that, for the final relaxation, for the place inside of your natural order. A solid scheme enough for things that not define the fantasies unreal by the definition. See what I am and I for the know. What do you want to do with that memory anyway? What do you want to do with that memory anyway? It was a certain kind of nomadic for the exquisite, for the nothing be to do, for the finishing, to give a poem, for the anger and the life, for this to be the hymn, or the rhythm of the beholder, for the beholder not, for the green side, for the goat. Blessed mornings and find the meat for the eye, for the alligator, for that you can come to flinking of form and flame. Is this a flake for the flame? I can find the game. Your art for the memory with a sword for that long, for the long ago, for the soaring, for that to be the waiter, for the yesterday unsure, for the shoulder, for the dreads back, for that rope, for the you can behold the only highway. Rut the spade to climb up and that grader, for the something smooth enough for the beat that falls and heaves and by the score, for the clutter, for the nothing to be shut out, for the brilliant. What did that muff for the this to go, for the narrow, for the needle, for the what you might wonder, for the enough, for the dance by the angels tonight, I don't care who didn't. No earthly need for the summon the spirit. No signs of them all, for nor would I dream one, for this to be the ones. Wouldn't that for the great, for the this to be the din. Nor for the lingering. Lame icon to find me conjunction to somewhere for the fetching of what you could bring home. Christ, I stand for the might be standing in mix of sleep, for the ugly rain, for the what you call for the art, and this trying to be growing up, but this that I supposed to define the jaded, for the this that I know what I can show up. Spade the blade that's there for the compromising with the compromise, for the what I can father for the bother, for the thanks to be the me, for the signal, for the thumb up, and the passing over the greater over. Something useful said, in prop that after the sound of odd ways, and knew the sounds different enough to watch me yesterday, stick me back in the I could never have the way to mine. Skillful agent for the wanting to see me wave, like it was a good thing. I was thinking of that beauty. It was the introduction for that, the song, to make like odds, and the cripple of the fine family, the fantasy for the omniscient, for the gods who can know about one word for the white be as well as much as you are for the precise enough that there's no the grand totality for the facts and not the things. Each knows the pattern for the life of the one to each and find neglected for the love. The leaf, millennium, the goat, knows the number to the stars for the ages, for the distance between them, for the all the things that they can remember too, for the recorded history, the backfiring. All the things that have to distort that for the thought, for this must flash across you. If existed for the mind, the middle for the knowledge, and not to be the school, man, for the stomach, for the spear, existed. Looks upon that for the enormous eyes, and not to find big enough for the distance, the picture, the courage to endure with the quivering, over the tip of the opinions, and what you can find a thunder over the ground, that and find the old war torn out like what's stuck with the blade. Partridge, she wore. What I worn if it wouldn't have been real. Monitors define what you find radiant from nothing the ratio. Jan the sun was martini. Whether you rather but not knew the bullet for the pavement was killed and not for the world. The words that were shot for became precisely what you knew for the senses of these, with the mind and questions of the factual answer. Each can answer it, for there's a question neither I can resolve. Which God am I? Potholes in the molecules, a place to find a ridiculous place. The spirit's been blocking my path, but I couldn't go anywhere particular for enough of the material to freedom to combine yourself with their subjective. That space is like having a skeleton for the game vantage point that seamless and distant for the comparison. Style accumulating for the materials does not become a solid thing anymore. Accommodating for the view, for the being not for the able to see through, for the perpetual, for the perception, for the disperception, for the abstract, for the light, the space of painted white. Give a house that for the form of an event, related to something there for the form of compassion. Point of view for the solid, for the already, for there's a warmth, for the primitive of the situation. Here for the translate, former empire for your space is wilderness, and you can find the space breaks it free. For the view in front of me for the house that I built at home continued to rotate on earth. Tulips they used to learn to run to, for the above the wave, for the drop those petals to the tabletop and not wilt as much as fame. Something about that burnt out the hearts, or something about that. And palette for the stems to just wear and decayed light. Parading finishes like starts in some way. Something about that twisted just to catch the last appalls. Drinking them up through long straws and not to find that to be crazy. Somehow getting clear tulips and make you want to see the game for this and want me for the backwards who's in that mirror for the who can't tell left from right. Glance over the wrong shoulder to it. Watch them get a little older for the giving themselves up to light. Rock me to sleep. Make me a child again for the night. Echo listen for sure, but take me back to your heart for your kissing me in the forehead for the fur, for the only smooth enough for the silver threads of mine. Summer for your loving, your watching keep me backwards. Tied for the years, the weary toil, for the tears and recomposed, this the tears and all the vain. Give me Mind for the world is grown weary, the dust of the decay. Flinging my soul for the wealth away for the weary of the soul. Sowing for the others to reap without the rock be to sleep again. For this to be tired, hollow, base of the untrue. Heart that calls for you, for the meaning, for the summer grass, and you can find what was green. Blossom and faded for the face between. Yearning and passionate for the pain, the love tonight, for the presence again, for the come that silent for the so long, for the so deep for the rock be to sleep and I can find that for the over my heart. Days are flown. Whether the love, the effort has been shown, that the worship is alive and endure, for the faithful, for the unselfishness and the patient like yours. None like that, for the charm, away the pain, for the sick of the soul, for the world away from the weary brain. Soft palms and after the heavy lids, creep me, find me to sleep. This would be the just lyric. Gold over the shoulders are kind to find and dropping over the forehead tonight. You can find the shading of the faint eyes and wait for the light. Edge and shadows once more for the this would be the sweet visions of your for the loving you for the bright billows of wheat. It's been long enough to listen to that lullaby song. It's been only a dream crashed with the heart, but this to be the only loving you can embrace, and that's the light. Last, that's the sweet, but the only face from hereafter for the waking of the weep. Rock me to sleep. The wells of a pen. Wait, you find yourself hardly amused. The sound of your outcry, how to become here to be next to each other in the night. Where the stars that show us our love, inevitable for the outside that leads to flame, usual in the darkness as the rain falls or cool, the blessings with the holy flesh. You find a man waiting on the corner for the woman linked with the mirage, and not to also amazed by a piece of this would be the possibility of you asleep. Breathing in the quiet air, you have much to despair for this to be. Never thought for the record, the pain, for the happiness, the candlelight lay, the entire night for the lace of the air, for this the full length, for the hair, for the shower, for that, for the organized by God, for you to be the order, luminous like particles of flame. But now I do retrieve an afternoon for the apricots, this the water, for the interpreted for the cigarettes of your sanded rocks, and we walk across how easily you held the hand, beside the low tide of the world. Now I do relieve that evening in the tree for the bridge, and I left behind for all solid, for the heat and lust and tender, for the trembling of this cruelest death to be kind. Passion spin itself for the infinite transgressions between that bitter for the sweet. Alone, longing for you now I do. I can forget, like I ever remember, but this would be the past memory. This would be the past and the permanent home. Seek that for what is the structure, for the appearance and the different, for the compoundness, for the isolation, for the heading towards that hopelessness. House of that red roof rests that between the two hills, can look through the windows and see that for the aggression, the post that for the domestic. Or cold to the open space, and that's enough to walk through the isolation, projection, divine the space of intermediary for the theater, for the round that for the not to consume. Space to exist and distance for the point to point, for disbelief, the room for the middle ground, for the forward example for the house is special, negate one another. There's a series of that to find about, to run around and find the lampshade, for the relate the one to catch the mouse, for the room for the ground, for the wanton master image, for the obscure ground, objects in space. House of space are composites for the like the dream, for the bubble, for the lightning is starting a point at any second place, for this will be the rain pouring out of the gutter through the port. The house under the tan roof for the supported by the poles. Salvage wood for the melting to the context, of this understanding the situation, perceiving the parts from after one another, for the reverse of the time, for the glance one moves, remove that for the end. To it, count text, lives for the wasting of ground, water define what's sitting on the frame. Packing your crate for through this to be existent. Extinct like a volcano, for the true figure to the space is literally for the glass wall, for the clouds appear like the flowers backlit through the silhouette, for this to be the passing by. Secure through the debris, a crew biding in the edge of sea, for this to be the energy of a stranger, for the knowledge, for that, for to be the bond of a being, for the model, for the sign, for the hold that world, for the distance, to match the image like a bone, to condense that instinct, filling itself within the construction that began. I return from outside.
Wait. You find yourself hardly amused. The sound of your outcry, how to become here to be next to each other in the night. Where the stars that show us our love, inevitable for the outside that leads to flame, usual in the darkness as the rain falls to cool the blessings with the holy flesh. You find a man waiting on the corner for the woman linked with the mirage, and not to also amazed by a piece of this be the possibility of you asleep. Breathing in the quiet air, you have much to despair for this to be. Never thought for the record, the pain, for the happiness, the candlelight lay, The entire night for the lace of the air, for this the full length, for the hair, for the shower, for that, for the organized by God, for you to be the altar, luminous like particles of flame. But now I do retrieve in the afternoon for the apricots, for this the water, for the interpretive, for the cigarettes of your sanded rocks, and we walk across how easily you held the hand beside the low tide of the world. Now I do relieve that evening of the treat, for the bridge and I left behind were all solid, for the heat and lust intended, for the trembling and the cruelest death to be kind. Passion spin itself for the infinite transgressions between that bitter for the sweet. Alone, longing for you now I do. I can forget, like I ever remember, this would be the past memory. This would be the past and the permanent home. Seek that for what is the structure, for the appearance and the different, for the compoundness, for the isolation, for the heading towards that hopelessness. House of that red roof, rest that between the two hills, can look through the windows and see that for the aggression, the post that for the domestic, or colder the open space, and that's enough to walk through the isolation, projection, and find the space in intermediary for the theater, for the round that for the not to consume. Space to exist, to distance, for the point to point, for disbelief, the room for the middle ground, for the void example, for the house is special, negate one another. There's a series of that to find the routes, to run around, to find the lampshade, for the relate to one, to catch the mouse, for the room, for the ground, for the wanton master image, for the obscure ground, objects in space. House and space are composites, for the like to dream, for the bubble, for the lightning, is starting a point at any second place, so this would be the rain pouring out of the gutter through the pore. The house under the tin roof is supported by the poles. Salvage wood for the melting to the context of this understanding the situation, perceiving the parts from after one another, for the reverse of the time, for the glance one moves, removes that for the end to it. Context for the wasting of ground, water define what's sitting on the frame. Packing your crate for through this to be existent, extinct like a volcano, for the true figure to the space is literally for the glass wall, for the clouds appear like the flowers backlit through the silhouette, for this to be the passing by. Secure through the debris, a crew binding in the edge of sea, for this to be the energy of a stranger, for the knowledge, for that, for to be the bond of a being, for the model, for the sign, for the hold that world, for the distance, to master the image like a bone, to condense that instinct, filling itself within the construction that began. I return from outside.
Hold that position. No mean for that, for the question, position, or positive for the both of the world, for unique perspective, enough of the world for the neither of us, of how the gods, and that for the two for the con, and rectify for this to be the himself, for the one to bring who they were, or what they are, for this to answer for because they don't know. Gods like those be real for the something up, for the sense of what you are and I and am, for the sense of that, for the God and one and two, for the this to be the reading of the late, and one around for the to the day, for the feeling in the sunlight against the face. I see the sunlight for the first spring of leaves, like green foam on the trees, and do you find the world for that we have in common, for the gods that can comprehend this entirely. Remains beyond the grasp of yours. The world is not for no eternity to see, for this to be the known for the world, for the completely enough for the gods knows and ours, and this because that for the knowing to take one thing to the start for the ends with me, for I can find the author for the captive of the world. Because my take on things, there's all to me, for this to be the philosophical, for the diversion that wanders over the room, for the black and white, for the shades of gray to finally see the rose. Goes on and on for the sunlight, for the drink, for that, for the talk, for the hour, for this to be the all, for this we might say, for this to be the artifact, for the perspective that it is. Philosophers can tell those stories to make them up, for this to be the something of the me, for the fine they to be, for the sometimes humming over this, and for the good enough that I suppose it ever to be extension of the exercise and nonsense. Black common sense to get over it. Tell myself refuted for the this to be the foot, for the inside that, for the entanglement of the self of that, for the final relaxation, for the place inside of your natural order. A solid scheme enough of things that not define the fantasies unreal by the definition. See what I am, and I happen to know for the disappoint. Possibility for dissolve yourself for the pros of facts. My little life and it may be bigger enough to sustain me while I can for this enough of the content. And whatever the knowledge is real for the finding catastrophic, for the inevitable enough of the find the rather occurred to me instead of that writing it down anyway. Really finding your happiness for the sorrow, for the tranquility, for the alteration to some abstract point, for this to be the points of nothing, for the incapable enough for your illusions must be real. You think might as well for defining what's real, for the no matter for the reflection it leads. It's accepting that for the means to take home the things that not the faith to find, that the ones that want to find a post of sight, for the possibility to want to walk out to evaporate that green spring. Who wants to have sex with your wrath? No matter where the reflection comes to that for the leading recourse, so this to be the not for the argument for the where it is that began. And the feeling of existence for the leaf of the concept, for the meaning despite that for the certainty, for that I have no idea of what's really for the world, when searching for the nature, for that I have no idea for where to start, for this to come into grips with what you have to slip away. And I am here now and ever present for the yet to vanish of that, for the apprehension for this finding language into the depth of the journey down for the dimensions. In prison for the present. Even as I say them for myself, for the worst to fall short for what I said, for starting out from the say like a conclusion of the argument for you can mind and find and what's to share for the empty thought for the balloon that hangs above the head for the healing. And questioning what makes me on for through the time for the figure. And that could be the person who remembered that for the thinking of him today. Constitutes me now for what they made of them. Giving them won't pretend or not pretending for the divine enough to be supplanted for the bright. Recording angels or knowing everything but the beyond the way for the gods and that altar where the world survive. Know the things, so this would be the face of that for the trace of brain projected for the screen for the degrees of separation that leak me entire day from finding what into the wilderness of the things that locked inside that universe without the afterlife, a difference for the complete incomplete for this to be deluded for the